You know, there was this great film back in 2004 with Jim Carrey and Kate Winslet. It was called Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. And the following video is going to talk about, not only comment on that great film, but on its premise, as well as some alternatives. And in fact, if you've got a YouTube channel, this would be all the more beneficial for you. To begin with, is that the premise of the film is there's a medical procedure in which they erase painful memories. We all have painful memories in our lives, and if given the opportunity, I would do that, actually. But nevertheless, and I would imagine a lot of other people would do as well, because I can't say that pain really enriches me. But nevertheless, I think that the premise is very exciting. And in that film, they essentially wipe out some painful memories regarding relationships. But then what happens is that it creeps back in, and it actually leaves a void. Plus, it's a surgical procedure. You have to go to a clinic. So are there alternatives, perhaps, to surgery, if this ever actually existed? And I would say there is. In modern day, there's this studies are being performed regarding a drug. It's called propranolol, I think, is the name of the drug. It's a beta blocker, and essentially it's originally used for speakers and anxiety. It's a beta blocker slow down the heart rate. And so, if you're giving a public speech, this is one of the most what is called off-label prescribed uses, medications. So, nevertheless, but what the studies are doing is that they're finding that the use of propranolol to help with people with PTSD and those painful memories, and they found that, at least preliminarily, is that it does not erase the memory, but rather it reduces the sting, the pain of that memory. And so that when it saves it back to your hard drive in your brain, then it's not as painful. So studies are being performed in that area. So that's very interesting. But what about other approaches, other than perhaps a pill? Of course, an off-label use of a drug is not for its originally approved purpose, and there's no such drug right now for erasing memories. It creates its own kind of challenge because you want to be able to be selective. You don't want to, erase the good memories, just the bad ones. But there is actually something else that I would recommend, particularly those that have a YouTube channel. And what I was thinking the other day is just, and that is a preemptive strike, so to speak, or just turn off your comments, because one of the challenges is that if you get into weighty matters on YouTube, you might have the situation in which you have a troll, somebody who shows up and is an armchair expert, and so doesn't have any clue, but believes that they do, and so it's a situation in which they don't realize their huge blind spot. And so, and as far as we know, it could be a bot, it could be some Russian troll or something like that, we don't know. But what about just avoiding that pain altogether? You could moderate the comments, you could approve every the comments. Well, what about just eliminating the comments? Just don't even permit any comments, because the question becomes is that, why are you on YouTube? And then I was watching this interesting interview with a bunch of film directors, and the idea is that, well, would you still make films if there was no one on the planet except yourself? And so that it brings this realization that why do we make films is that we make it for ourselves as a way to express, but we also make it for others. So it's kind of a combo, but you don't make it for the trolls. So anyway, I think that's very valuable. And I see myself as more of a filmmaker than I see myself as a social media person. And so, since my audience is those who appreciate humor in the darkness, would be my particular audience, And in fact, along those lines, I'm thinking that, later down the line, until we have, I look forward to the day in which we have the ability to erase, painful memories. But the other thing too is that, I could anticipate that it would be in the area that you could, instead of a surgery, an alternative approach would be an oral medication that you can take, or perhaps even a suppository, because an awful lot of memories are a pain in the ass. So a suppository would probably seem to be the appropriate approach. So that's my take on it, and I think that the Jim Carrey, Kate Winslet film is a great one. It's got an interesting premise on it, challenges, and science is proceeding further along these lines. But until there's a cure, there's at least a treatment for painful memories, particularly if you have a YouTube channel. Just turn the comments off, because unless you see yourself as a social media person, because I see myself more as a filmmaker. Hope that helps. Till next time. This has been Humor in Darkness.